What's important for these artists to do if they're going to take on a political role is to do a lot of research into the history of their nation, into the history of their colonization, and also into the history of what was their involvement in society before it was quote-unquote civilized. I mean, this whole idea of civilizing a country is, quite frankly, ridiculous to me. No one's ever come and civilized another people. They've imposed their civilization on another people.
The white man.
You take a West African man who's sitting there tending his goat or whatever, and here jumps off a boat a man clad in armor, a religious fanatic covered in lice, you know what I mean, waving an arc booster, throws a chain around his neck, enslaves his women and children, throws them in the bottom of a boat, steals them, takes them to another country, forces them to build a house called the White House, of all fucking things. If you can imagine the irony of that. And then does all these negative things, lies to them about their history. Of course, revisionists will look at what I'm saying and say, oh, Technique, how can you be that brutal and cruel? As if they're not the ones protecting the image of a slave master. Now tell me, who's the real savage? The innocent motherfucker minding his own business, trying to provide for his family? Or someone who justifies stealing other people on the basis of religion when they can't look themselves in the mirror and say, I made up this whole idea of race as an excuse to steal you? Because unlike the Caliphate and unlike the Roman Empire, I couldn't just look you in the face and say, no, I took you because I was stronger than you. There's an interesting series of books beautifully written, by the way, by Middle Eastern historian Al-Tabari. And one of my favorite volumes is number 36, The Revolt of the Zanj, which translates to the Revolt of the Blacks. And it's the story of East African people who were enslaved and brought into the Abbasid Caliphate. And it tells the story of a time when all the Arab armies came together, not to, you know, free Palestine, not to attack Israel, no, to re-enslave black people because they were the heart and soul of their country. They weren't America ain't the only ones that, motherfuckers been in the slave trade since. But it puts perspective to it because people interpreted it differently. Because the same way Nat Turner and Denmark Vesey read the Bible and said, no, 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 you've been teaching me the wrong thing. You've been telling me I need to be obedient to my master. But in this other page way here, Moses says, let my people go. They interpreted the Quran differently, and they said, you can't justify enslaving people from Africa with the Quran. Allah wants us all to be free. You can't look down on me because I don't necessarily fit the criteria of what you think a Muslim should look like, or a Christian, or a Jew. That's not your place to say, because you're not God. You just pretend to speak for him because you are the head of the most concentrated form of oligarchy, which is a monarchy. And that applies to everywhere around the world. I mean, unfortunately, I think we're still dealing with these issues. And I tell people from the Middle East, whether you're MCs, whether whatever, you know, you have to look that up. You have to realize where you come from. As long as you be convinced you never did anything, you can never do anything. And always remember, whenever anybody gives you any advice, do yourself a favor and research what their agenda is. It's not a simple world. It's not cut and dry. It's not good guys and bad guys. It's bad guys that do good things and good guys who have done some really, really horrible things. That's the world.